Chapter 10. The weather outside may have been dreary and cold, but it held no power over the gray mare grinning into her pillow. She had the warmest of thoughts keeping her happy. Her friend, her best friend, was lying in a bed not 6 meters away, giggling quietly beneath her covers. The faint sound of beeping barely reached Octavia's ears, and as expected, a few moments later her phone began to ring. It was the third time this morning. The first had awoken her, and the second had made her aware of the culprit. The cellist reached a hoof out to her bedside table and pulled her phone over, answering it with a blind jab. "Hello?" Tinny laughter reached her at the same time as the giggling across the room got louder. She waited patiently as the mysterious caller cleared her throat and spoke in a comically deep voice. "Is your refrigerator running?" "Are you really doing this?" "Ma'am, I really need to know. Is your refrigerator running?" "I don't have a refrigerator. The dormitory kitchens are technically owned by the university." "Well, you better run after... hang on a sec." The line and the room was silent, as Vinyl attempted to salvage the situation. "All right, is the university-owned refrigerator running?" "I'm not sure. I haven't used it yet." The DJ ripped the sheets off her head. "Damn it, Octavia!" Sticking her tongue out, the mare in question slid off her bed and walked over to her friend. "Well, that's why you don't try to prank call some pony with the oldest trick in the book." "How do you even know about prank calls anyway?" Vinyl casually patted the space beside her, and her friend took the hint, climbing up and lying next to the unicorn. "Like I said, oldest trick in the book. Pranks were featured in one of the university preparation guides I read. Granted, it was more focused on recognizing and neutralizing mischief rather than instigating it, but how many of those books have you read?" Maroon lenses flashed inquisitively. Octavia inwardly cursed herself for not waking up early enough to see Vinyl without them. A fair few. I got very bored, remember." "Do you ever try anything to stop being bored?" Reaching out, the unicorn idly started touching her friend's slightly disheveled mane. The cellist frowned. "Like what?" "Never mind. I was just saying, whatever, you know?" Vinyl's voice shook a little. "You can be really odd sometimes, Vinyl. Why are you touching my mane?" Pausing for a moment, the DJ's mind raced. "Because that's what best friends do. One of the things, anyway. Play with each other's manes, you know." "Really? What are the other things? I should start researching this." Octavia bit her lip and quickly stuck a hoof in her roommate's mane, making her wince. "Easy there. You're not supposed to rip my hair out. And anyway, you don't need to research anything. That's what I'm for. I'll tell you everything you need to know." "Oh, thank you so much, Vinyl. I wouldn't have a clue what to do without you." She leaned closer and planted a grateful kiss on the unicorn's cheek before hopping off the bed. "Well, you'll have to start teaching me later, because I have a lecture soon." A rush of air swept past as Vinyl rushed to the bathroom door. "I'm having a shower," she called, voice cracking as she stepped into the blue-tiled room. "Okay." After a moment, the charcoal-maned mare dismissed her friend's antics and started getting ready. First, she would need to prepare the books and stationery needed for the lecture. Next, she needed to perform her morning exercises. And finally, as she would rather be sweaty by then, a shower would be required, followed by finishing touches. It was all a matter of not letting anything impede her routine. Awkwardness. Sheer, immovable awkwardness. They descended the stairs without looking at each other. "Are we going to talk about it?" Octavia ventured tentatively. "No." "But we never wear clothes anyway, so what difference—" "I was in the shower!" "It was an honest mistake. I was distracted and forgot you were in there. Couldn't you hear the water?" "I get very focused on my routine." "Yeah, no kidding." The DJ pushed the exit door and paused to keep it open for the other mare. Octavia smiled nervously. "So, are we still friends?" That seemed to shock Vinyl out of her righteous anger. "What? Yeah, of course we are. Let's just never talk about this. Ever again, okay?" Smiling genuinely now, the cellist nodded. "Okay. Cool. Now give me a hug and go to class." The embrace ended far too soon, and Octavia quickly trotted away. Vinyl stepped back inside the building and practically skipped up the stairs. She didn't have any classes today, so that meant finding something to do until her friend got back. The university provided many different on-campus entertainment facilities, such as pool tables, movie rentals, and social hangouts like the tavern, but none of them caught her interest. Instead, she trotted merrily back to her room, closing the door behind her. In a flash of magic, her mixing table, which had dragged itself over to sit beside her desk, came to life and whirred happily, like a pet greeting its owner. Additionally, the bulky computer beeped into being, flashing various screens at the DJ. Plucking her glasses off and resting them nonchalantly on her head, Vinyl felt a grin tug at the corners of her mouth. There hadn't been much time for energy or making music lately, but now, here she was, with a few hours and the perfect inspiration. I hope that these walls are strong. Within minutes of starting production, the window was vibrating from an extremely low, almost imperceptible bass line. Like the forceful hum of an empty room, it set tingles down the DJ's spine. She always started a song like this, just to get the energy flowing and keep her heart pumping. It filled the room with a restless yet focused vibe, forcing her to always stay moving and thinking about the music. But something was slightly off today. She went for the usual tones, wondering how to give them new life, when a particular synthesized instrument caught her attention. Maybe just a test. At the tap of a button and a pulse of magic, a deep, ominous tone emanated from her speakers. A cello, playing a single, consonant note. The sound quality was almost perfect, and every minute scratch of the non-existent bow moving across virtual strings captured in jaw-dropping clarity. And it was good. It gave the bass a completely different meaning, now dark and scary, almost seeming to warn of approaching doom, contrasted with the energetic feel it held before. Vinyl seized the sudden realization and began trying a few different notes, simple patterns, nothing truly amazing, but when the music looped and played her new additions, she practically squealed with delight. This was something she hadn't even thought of doing before. Who knew such an old instrument would fit into modern tunes so well? The next hour and a half passed in a haze of giddy experimentation as she brought in several other instruments from the string section. The DJ felt as though there was a whole other world of music that she had been too blind to see before now. And it was all because of Octavia. As if she needed another reason to... The music was suddenly kicked up to an even higher volume, safely blasting away any and all thoughts currently battling through the unicorn's mind. She gritted her teeth and focused on the screen, but it was hopeless trying to concentrate now. With a sigh, she turned the volume back down to more reasonable levels. Those traitorous thoughts crept back in slowly, whispering possibilities and confessions that she was neither ready for nor inclined to confront. But they didn't care if she was ready, scratching as they did in the back of her head. What if... maybe... Damn it, go away! She yelled, slamming a hoof down on the table and making it shake. But the thoughts didn't cease, so she buried her face in her hooves in frustration. When would it stop? The chilly air sent her mane completely into disarray the moment she stepped out of the lecture theater. Sighing, the cellist vainly tried to restore order for a few moments before ultimately giving up, instead trying to focus on getting back to the student village. Ahead, huddled together near the north of the path leading to the apartments, were two mares, one of them a familiar mint-green unicorn who raised her head on spotting Octavia. Heart beating slightly faster from remembered insults, the cellist tried to politely ignore them. "Hey!" called Lyra. The other mare looked up as well, orange mane waving in the breeze. Octavia tried to keep walking, but a second shout followed after. "Hey, hold up a second!" "I really should get home," she said over her shoulder, slowing very slightly. "It'll only take a moment, geez, act like I'm gonna hit you." The green unicorn walked up and smiled. Her black eye had faded considerably, but was still quite noticeable. The gray mare forced a chuckle. "Yes, that would be ridiculous." "Now, listen, you're not a big fan of that vinyl scratch chick, are you?" Oh, no. We haven't been very discreet lately, have we? Did she see us together? Does she know we share a room?" When no answers presented themselves, she hesitantly struck the plan. No, not at all. She, really gets on my nerves." "Yeah, same here. She bothers a lot of ponies, way I hear it." A dark smirk split Lyra's lips. "Up for some revenge?" Cold anger crackled to life within the cellist. Revenge? Revenge for what? The smirk faltered for a moment. For, all the stuff she used to say to you in class. Name-calling and petty insults. Yeah, didn't she piss you off? Yes, but only until I left the classroom. She hardly crosses my mind at all outside of our psychology tutorial. I think it's rather childish to seek revenge for something so trivial. But I bet when you two were out on your assignment, she was even worse, right? The unicorn was quickly losing control of the situation, unable to deal with her unexpected response. Occasionally, but again, when she was out of sight, I didn't think about her. I refused to let such negative feelings rule me. Octavia stepped forward with a disappointed frown. But it seems you have done the opposite, Lyra. Rather than accept your petty feud with Vinyl as just that, petty, you're actually seeking other ponies to conspire with against her. Therefore, not only are you letting your hatred for Vinyl control your actions, but you're setting a terrible precedent for the rest of your life. Every time a boss critiques your work or a passerby hurls an insult, will you launch a personal vendetta on them? Tell me, do you see that resulting in a happy life? The green mare's mouth worked, and her eyes blinked rapidly as if trying to fend off the verbal blows. I don't... Why? You need to think about what kind of pony you're becoming. Think hard, because if you don't change soon, Bon Bon won't be the only friend to give you a black eye. It was an educated guess, but it paid off, albeit only getting a response. Hey! You have no idea what happened with me and Bon. Don't bring her into this. Octavia bowed her head humbly. That is true. I apologize. But my words are all the same, and you know it. Lyra wore a conflicted expression, defiance against acceptance. You should get going, Octavia. The cellist turned to leave, pausing only to talk. Will you think about it? Maybe. Nodding, Octavia walked away, continuing down the path. Behind her, the conversation slowly grew softer. Way to back me up, C-Top, muttered a despondent Lyra. Way to get your flank kicked, Lie. Why didn't you help? 'Cause she's right. No, she's not. I'm not like that. Right? Even at a distance, C-Top's voice dripped with venom. You've told me to shut up 3 times today. I don't even know why I hang out with you. And the very last thing Octavia heard was a very small, yet oh so momentous word. Sorry. She allowed herself a little triumphant smile as the apartment buildings revealed themselves. I must have set the lie density record for a conversation, but it was worth it. An odd buzzing noise became apparent as she stepped inside the thin-walled structure. It seemed to come from upstairs, somewhere around room 10. Oh dear. Octavia's eyes widened as she remembered the significant amount of musical equipment in her room, all of which was under the supervision of a bored DJ. Oh dear. She bolted past a familiar odd Pegasus and into the stairwell, trying to climb quickly but carefully. About halfway up, additional sounds came into clarity. Violins, violas, cellos? That's an antique, you foolish unicorn! She hissed under her breath. That's an antique, you foolish unicorn! She hissed under her breath, picking up the pace. How dare Vinyl go through her most precious belongings? How dare she try to play her cello? And how dare she be rather good at it? Charging down the hallway, the true cellist skidded to a halt outside the door and pushed it open quickly, not giving any warning whatsoever so as to catch the privacy invader in the act. Out of the corner of her eye, she could see her cello case completely untouched and where she left it, but her focus was immediately drawn to the second computer desk, which was occupied by the unicorn. The music. It was all from Vinyl's computer and mixing table, all of it, from viola to violin, orchestrated entirely from a computer. How could she possibly know how to combine them with such intricacy? It was a safe assumption to say that Vinyl had never sat through an entire piece of classical music in her life, yet here she was, creating one. Where did such inspiration come from? Octavia's saddlebag slipped from her back with a silent thud against the carpet, and she slowly closed the door so as to not disturb the artist at work. Drawing may have been more than a hobby, and she certainly had skill with the pencil, but this is what Vinyl was born to do. It was obvious beyond question. Her posture, loose yet focused, her movements sharp with precision of talent and experience combined, and her creation, awe-inspiring as it was, all served to prove that her cutie mark suited her more than ever before. As the song continued, looping and changing, improving with every iteration, Vinyl became increasingly agitated. She would shake her head as if to dislodge thoughts, and occasionally muttered something to herself. The DJ suddenly turned the volume up to indecent levels, seemingly making the entire building shake. Octavia couldn't help but jump at the sudden explosion of bass, but there was no way Vinyl could hear her over the music. It was too loud to truly appreciate it, and the unicorn seemed to share that opinion, turning it down once more. But she remained as frustrated as before, shifting in her seat restlessly. Octavia watched the blue tail sweep across the floor and back almost hypnotically, synchronizing with the music unintentionally. In a flash, Vinyl slammed her hoof down on the desk with a bang and shouted, "Damn it, go away!" before stuffing her head into her hooves. An icy bolt of fear struck Octavia's heart. Vinyl must have seen her reflection and realized she wasn't alone. It was like being caught observing a private moment between lovers. No matter your true intentions, they would think the worst of you. "Sorry," she said softly. "I didn't mean to interrupt." Vinyl turned the music off with a desperate-looking pulse of magic and spun around to face her roommate. From the surprise painted on her features, it seemed Octavia's presumptions were incorrect. The cellist felt as though reality itself was holding its breath as a wondrous sight revealed itself to her. "Red," she whispered almost inaudibly. "No, sorry, I wasn't..." "Oh, the cellist. Red," she said, red. Okay, my bad, I'm getting the characters mixed up here. "No, sorry, I wasn't, yelling at you." The white mare tried to chuckle, but her voice cracked and ruined any attempt at nonchalance. Octavia took a few steps closer. "I heard your music," she said, trying to fill the air with something resembling conversation, even though her focus was elsewhere. Red. Of course they would be red. Nobody had red eyes, so of course she would have them. Vinyl looked uncomfortable from the intense, unblinking gaze upon her, but the gray mare couldn't stop. For weeks she had wondered about them and tried to catch a glimpse. Those two deep orbs that had eluded her for so long were now visible in their entirety. And they were beautiful. "Why do you wear glasses?" her own voice asked somewhere far away as she took another couple of steps towards the unicorn. Now Vinyl was the one who couldn't look away, cornered as she was by the close proximity. They stood less than a meter apart, garnet reflecting amethyst. The white mare looked almost frightened. Without the shades to hide behind, there was nothing between them. Octavia reached out and touched a cheek. The DJ felt heat creep up from the back of her neck, and all sounds grew softer. Her roommate's coat looked so soft, and her hoof gently holding her in place, as if she wanted to move, as if she would ever want to move again. They stood for a moment, the room around them fading like a dream after waking. Worries and doubts flitted through the blue-maned mare, but those vague, mist-shrouded fears were burned away by the light from Octavia's eyes. For her part, the cellist had never felt more resolute in her life. It didn't entirely make sense, not yet, but it felt right. And after a lifetime of trusting naught but facts and measurable phenomena taught in school, she decided that was enough. At least, for now. All that mattered was the last slow steps that brought them face to face. All that mattered was the DJ's shaking breath brushing against her chin. All that mattered was closing the last few inches. All that mattered was the kiss. Octavia pulled back, startled out of her resolve by the pressure on her lips. "I'm so sorry. The DJ wasn't about to let it end. Not after this long. Not after all those damn thoughts. This was one dream she would never let fade. She pushed forward, wrapping her hooves around the gray mare's neck. The heat on her face spread through her entire body like a current of electricity, sparking off every nerve and twitching every muscle. Faced as she was with the rather passionate assault, Octavia stopped trying to retreat and instead attempted to weather the barrage. Occasionally, she would reflexively try to kiss back, but it felt rather clumsy and uncoordinated, so for the most part, She refrained. Not that Vinyl was a master of lip play. The unicorn seemed convinced that as long as her lips were pressing against the general area of Octavia's muzzle, they were in the right place. The cellist had read no small amount of guides for exactly this situation, but it was particularly difficult to recall any useful information when being subjected to such raw emotion. Breathing heavily, they parted at last, this time for longer than a second. Vinyl's white cheeks were flushed red, and her expression was of confused surprise. As if shocked at her own actions, Octavia couldn't help but be a little curious herself. What had started as a dazed, half-considered desire had quickly become something more, thanks to her enthusiasm. Sorry, squeaked Vinyl, somehow managing 2 voice cracks in one word. I am not, replied the cellist. Seeing her friend's eyebrows raise slightly, she elaborated. Well, I'm still not sure what to think. I would be lying if I told you that I hated it. Make of that what you will. She panted at the end, still short of breath. The other mare seemed to be struggling to form any words, licking her lips as if to start speaking, but ultimately remaining silent. Only the sound of her computer gently whirring nearby kept them from descending into true stillness. I'm not sure, she finally began, but her voice cracked again and she stopped, casting those garnet eyes around the room as if looking for an escape. I don't know. Another voice crack. She cleared her throat and swallowed. I have no idea what I'm doing. The DJ gave a breathless laugh, apparently not addressing any pony in particular. Oh, Celestia, what am I doing? Her eyes shot back to Octavia. What are we doing? Shrugging slightly, the cellist could offer no adequate response. The answer eluded her as much as it did the other mare. All she could do was watch the red eyes that had captivated her to the point of near delirium. They still held a subtle, almost hypnotizing quality to them, bright as they were. Octavia forced herself to look away. Vinyl, when I've been unsure about something in the past, my mother... Oh, sweet Celestia, my mother! Her eyes widened as she recalled the content of the last conversation she had shared with the older mare. She's going to murder me! Huh? Why? Because I just kissed... Catching herself, the cellist lowered her voice considerably. Because I just kissed a mare, she hissed, looking around as though her mother was about to crawl out from beneath the bed and attack. How the hey is she gonna know that? For once, the DJ was being the rational one. She'll find out sooner or later. She always finds out everything. Sooner or later. Her voice was quiet, almost the tone of a frightened filly. Wow. Okay, I think I'm getting a pretty clear idea of your childhood. Octavia began to pace nervously. Whenever I did something she didn't like, I was whisked off to a psychologist. She would stare silently at me until I spilled every one of my secrets. What? Are you serious? The unicorn couldn't help but feel guilty, remembering her first impression of the gray mare as a stuck-up, boring snob. Of course, she didn't have much visible flavor. Her individuality had been practically beaten out of her. No secrets, no hiding places, no thought to call her own. She didn't grow up. She was grown. Anger rose within her like a leviathan from the ocean floor, centered on the misty silhouette of the mother. I'm afraid so, and I think it's gotten to the point where that's the only way I can find resolution when I'm not sure about things. Octavia deliberately looked everywhere but at the mare beside her. Vinyl couldn't help but feel hurt at that. As absurd as it was, it still hit hard, realizing that her dream might not be becoming true after all. Okay, she said quietly. I'm sorry, Vinyl. I wish I could like you and let everything slide, but my head is just filled with all these things, and I need to sort them out before, well, I don't know, before anything else happens. It's okay, the DJ repeated, this time with a small smile. I did kind of lose control there. I shouldn't have forced, I shouldn't be so pushy when I'm as confused as you are. Yes, well, what's done is done, and now I would like to untangle my thoughts before I trip over them again. Octavia hesitated in the silence that followed, but thought better of whatever crossed her mind and instead walked slowly to the door. Vinyl inwardly shouted at herself, unwilling to simply let the moment end. I can't let her leave. She'll never come back to me. As absurd as it was, that was the thought that made her speak. Wait! The treble-clef-marked mare stopped mid-step and looked back nervously, swallowing. The DJ realized the only way to avoid stammering like a little filly was to blurt it out. I didn't hate it either. The kissing, I mean, it was... Yeah. The only response Octavia dared to give was a little, oddly grateful smile. When the door shut behind her, Vinyl was left alone once more, with naught but a half-finished song on her computer and a cellist on her lips. The receptionist looked surprised, despite the milling groups of students in the lobby. Miss Octavia, how may I be of service? Summoning her most convincing smile, the cellist stepped up to the counter. I was wondering if I could set up an appointment with the current student psychologist. Certainly, replied the receptionist, perhaps a little too eagerly for Octavia's liking. Most of the staff seemed to behave rather oddly around her, and she was starting to suspect involvement of the maternal kind. We have a system that rotates all the... pardon me for interrupting, but I would like to make an appointment quickly. She didn't seem to sound so harsh, but the thought of her mother put her on edge. Oh, of course. My deepest apologies, Miss Octavia. I'll just call his office and see if he's free right now. The unicorn floated a phone up to her ear and rapidly tapped the keypad with magic. A trickle of sweat ran down the back of her neck. Hello? Yes, this is reception. We have Octavia here, wondering when your next open slot is. Oh, right now? Well, that's very fortunate. I'll send her right up. Hanging up, she gave Octavia another slightly too happy smile. Well, gosh, that was lucky. Just head up the stairs over there and take a right. It's the last room on the right. Thank you? Slightly bewildered, yet grateful for the prompt service nonetheless, the cellist followed the directions, marveling as middle-aged administration workers and highly trained lecturers stepped out of her way very politely. It was like one of those jokes from high school that every pony got except her, and just as infuriating. Just before she reached the office, a stallion was shoved out of it. It was the same pony from Vinyl's art class, only looking slightly more haggard. Hey, I wasn't done talking yet, he said angrily. After a muffled reply from within the office, he rolled his eyes and trudged down the hall, shoving past Octavia. While not entirely sure what to make of that little encounter, the cellist did her best to ignore it. As much as she wanted to let her mind run away on a tangent trying to figure out the rude ejection of that stallion, she couldn't afford to avoid her own problems, especially since she was now living with one of them. Let me just take a moment. One of the things that I am liking about this story, that obviously the main focus is on Vinyl and Octavia, but they have this stuff going on with Lyra and, what's his name, Shady Oak. They have these things going on with these other characters, and they sort of have their own little deals going on. So it kind of makes it feel like a real college, you know what I mean? It's a nice little touch to the story that makes it seem a bit more believable. And you get to learn about some of the side characters a bit more than maybe you didn't. And I'm sure that Shady Oak, whoever just came out of the office, is going to come back later, and we're going to learn about his conversation with the psychologist. But moving on. Oh, Celestia, how can I even face her again after that? The office was small, almost cramped, with most of the available space taken up by a large desk flanked by chairs on either side of it. The pony behind it was doubled over, flicking through files in a drawer. His frizzy red mane bobbed in a very familiar way, and as he sat upright and deposited a file on the desk, she saw why. Hey there, Octavia, Psyche beamed. Ready to knock your school worries on the head? Not with you. She turned to leave. Hey, wait a second. I'm just as qualified as every other psychologist on the roster, he said defensively. Yes, and you also spent most of this semester encouraging me to fight with another student. Wincing, the tutor-cum-counselor scratched the back of his head guiltily. When you put it that way, it sounds mean, but it was all just a bit of fun. You could have told me to stop at any moment. Besides, that stopped weeks ago. Regardless, I don't think I can discuss this particular problem with you. Octavia felt rather guilty herself. Who was she to be picky with psychologists? After a moment's silence, Psyche leaned forward. Does it involve Vinyl? He asked quietly. She nodded. Everything involves Vinyl. Octavia, he sighed. Look, I want to help you with whatever's wrong, but I'll need you to trust me. I realize I don't present the most professional image in class, but I take my duties very seriously." The cellist looked at his face, but found no trace of mirth there. Not a twitch at the corner of his mouth, nor a twinkle in his eyes. "All right," she said cautiously, closing the door and taking a seat. "So, what's up?" Oh, crap. Now she had to actually tell him. "I suppose I should explain a few things first." The charade came crashing down. "Vinyl and I are friends. We've been friends since the first assignment." She sighed and jammed her eyes shut. "You were right. We had a lot more in common than we thought." When no response was given, she peeked at the stallion. His expression was unchanged, and he made no indication that he was about to capitalize on the confession. Encouraged by his professionalism, she continued. We've actually become quite close over the last few weeks. I'm not sure what you know from that file, but I didn't have any friends in high school. Vinyl offered a hoof of friendship, and I seized it with all my might. I thought I was being a little possessive of her, but lately I've been wondering if she was just as lonely as me. Anyway, that doesn't matter now." She took a deep breath to calm her nerves. It didn't work. "What matters is we've become such close friends that Vinyl even managed to convince the student coordinator to let her move in with me." Octavia allowed herself a little smile. "It has been wonderful. I've never felt so close to some pony who isn't family before, or, well, no, I think I feel closer to her than my family." Psyche smiled as well, but it was understanding and genuine rather than mocking. "I'm glad to hear that." Her smile faltered. "But it's changed. I still feel very close to her, but I'm not even sure what it is. I want to spend as much time with her as I can, just like before, but now I'm not thinking about companionship or watching a movie together or joking in Blue's Tavern. I find myself thinking about how soft her hooves are and how her coat looks like powdered diamond and... She surprised herself by sniffing back a tear. The stallion across the room pushed a tissue box forward, but she shook her head. "No, it's okay. I'm fine. I shouldn't even be crying. This isn't sad." "Ponies don't just cry when they're sad. They can cry from happiness, from fear, or even from love. Please, don't hold back if you feel the need. Tears can help more than you might think." His voice was calm, kind. His tone, one of simple understanding. It was odd, coming from the normally energetic tutor, but it helped nonetheless. She took the tissue gratefully. "Thank you." And after a few seconds to gather her thoughts, the cellist soldiered onwards. I'm not as naive as many ponies think. I know what these feelings for Vinyl are, in essence, even if I'm not quite ready to admit them yet. The problem is that I've never liked any pony in this way before, especially not a mare." Taking a moment to consider her words, Psyche reclined back in his chair. "Realizing one's sexuality is rarely a straightforward process. Pardon the pun." He reddened slightly, but the gray mare didn't penalize him for it, instead looking out the window at the grassy court. "And coupled with the fact that Vinyl is your first true friend, I can only imagine how conflicted you must feel. However, you've maintained perfect composure during class despite this. I must tentatively conclude that something has happened, an event of sorts, to make you seek outside help." Octavia nodded, still looking away. "I saw her without her glasses for the first time. I never thought myself as the type to be entranced easily, but..." Did she notice you staring? Or did you do something?" "I did something," she whispered. "What happened?" "I kissed her." Saying it out loud seemed to consolidate a million thoughts at once. She kissed Vinyl. On the lips. Her first kiss ever was with a mare, and not just that, but her best friend, too. "And what was Vinyl's reaction?" Psyche almost seemed to brace himself. Octavia couldn't help but blush, remembering the sudden, insistent pressure on her lips and the taste of Vinyl and the feel of her breath as she desperately kept pushing. "She kissed me back." "Well, I might be getting rusty, but that sounds like a good thing." "It is, but it isn't. There are too many things in play here. My mother, the other students, my studies. It's too much to process for me at once. So, don't process it, he suggested simply, and at her raised eyebrow, he elaborated. Don't overthink it. I know for a fact that you are blasting through schoolwork much faster than your tutors can issue it. Your mother is all the way up in her estate, last I heard, and even if she found out the second you kissed Vinyl, it would take a few days for her to get her affairs in order before even traveling down here. The other students have their own problems. Trust me, I've spoken to hundreds of them.
Well, what should I do then?
Octavia dropped the tissue in a small bin and straightened her mane. Take a few weeks off studying altogether. 2, to be precise.
But exams are in 3 weeks, exclaimed the cellist.
Yes, they are. And you are so ridiculously prepared for them that they might as well be kindergarten crayon coloring competitions. Trust me, you'll be fine. Go to lectures and tutorials like usual, take notes, but leave it at that. You have more important things to put energy into. The orange-coated stallion gave a smile reminiscent of his usual demeanor. I like this guy. He's my favorite character. I like this psychologist.
I think you're the first teacher to ever tell me not to study. But, very well. What should I do in that time?
Talk to Vinyl. Tell her what's going through your mind. I think she likes you quite a bit. As giddy as that thought made her feel, Octavia wasn't done.
So, I'm supposed to just talk for 2 weeks?
He waved a hoof. Get dinner together, go see movies, all that good stuff. Just spend time with her and your conflicted feelings will resolve themselves.
Is it really that easy?
She asked hopefully. It can be, if you let it. Remember, don't overthink everything. Just do anything. Or, don't think, just do. Let your natural response be your actual response, and you'll see the truth. He blinked. Hey, that was pretty good. You can quote me on that if you want. They chuckled together, and the cellist felt better with every laugh. Simply voicing all of her worries, having somebody to confide in, was making all the difference.
I like Vinyl, but there is... Stop. I like Vinyl, she said, starting to beam.
Perhaps you should tell her that, replied Psyche with a wink.
I want to be with her right now, but this is an excellent idea.
She slid off the chair and walked over to the door, pausing only to look over her shoulder.
Thank you.
He nodded and waved as she left the room. When the hoofsteps had faded from earshot, he slowly opened the file. On top of several detailed pages of psychological evaluations was a little yellow sticky note, one he had noticed before but always ignored. Psych. Oh, so this is from Octavia. This is from Octavia's mother.
Psych. You'll let me know if my Octavia comes to see you while you're in counselor, Dirty, won't you? It would be ever so sweet of you.
For a long moment, he stared at the words. Their perfect hoof-written style reminding him of the mare who just left. Every curl and flick was flawless, every word possessing weight beyond its appearance. Then, with a casual brush of his right hoof, the note was peeled away and sent fluttering into the air, twirling and spiraling downwards until it came to a rest beside a tissue at the bottom of the bin. Oops, he whispered, closing the file once more. Yeah, see, psychologist is a good character. He's energetic, he likes his field of study, he likes his students, he helps them out, and even when he's being potentially bribed by a woman to tell her about the mental health of his students, of his clients, per se, he puts the client's best interest first. That's a good character. What are we at now? We got 38 minutes. All right, that sounds like a good stopping point. Next will be Chapter 12. Hope to see you guys there. If you guys want to help me out and donate to my Patreon, make sure you go to the link in the description. You give me a certain amount of money, and you can give me suggestions as to what to read, and I'll read them for you. And if you're interested in hearing me read things live, you can come to the Discord channel. There's also a link to the Discord channel in the description. And you can come and hear me read things live and hang out with people and have a good time. That being said, that's the end of this video. Hope to see you guys next time. End of the video. This is the end.